This video here that I'm commencing now looks at what's called the abandonment smothering continuum. That is an examination of what happens to the child when it's confronted with parenting that's outside the normal range in terms of the amount of smothering of the child or its abandonment. On the abandonment side of the scale, there are a number of emotional reactions that a child will go through if it perceives itself to be under emotionally protected, under supported. As we can see there is a normal range, and if for whatever reason the parents are not emotionally there, or the child perceives the parents to be not emotionally there, then it will have a number of emotional reactions, as I said, the first one being anger. So in this case, the child perceives the parents to not emotionally be there. Of course, they can, in some instances, the parents can provide the physical environment very well. That is, they provide housing, food, clothes and so forth. Obviously that's not what is being referred to here. It is what is being discussed here is the child who perceives the lack of emotional support. For instance, in families where, for instance, the mother and father have an alcohol or drug problem, that means that they are often not psychologically there for the child because they're involved with the drug use, or there's some sort of mental illness, depression. For instance, if the mother's got quite severe depression, then she can't emotionally be there for the child. When that happens, the first reaction will be one of anger, and in this case the child is basically perceives the parents as not being there, so it has an angry response to that. It's saying it's not fair. In whatever way it will say, I don't want you, mummy is bad, all those sorts of things. A child may even hit out at the parents because its reaction to its under protection is, the first one is of anger. In some instances that has no effect, and there's this chastisement of the parents by the child, and the abandonment becomes more severe. If that is the case, then the child goes beyond being angry at the parents for not being there and becomes scared, becomes anxious, and thinks, well, these people are serious about not being there, so it's not a matter of they're bad because they're not there. I'm wondering if I can cope. And children who are raised with this primary level can often develop things like night terrors in their sleep, nightmares, repetitive nightmares perhaps, and the child develops what's called an anxious attachment with the parent. That is, in its primary relationship with the parent, it has anxiety. If this persists, and in adolescence, this type of person can do a number of things. First, you can get the development of what's called the good child. That is a child who behaves in cases you may get high achievement in academia or sport, because what that does is the child is making an attempt to keep the parents around by doing the right thing. So they conform and seek to keep the parents around by doing things which they perceive the parents to like. In adolescence, of course, if a child raised in this way, children can do another thing. That is, if they feel they're abandoned by the parents, then they can take the view that the reason why they're abandoning me is because there must be something wrong with me. And if this is the conclusion made by the adolescent, then you can get things like self-mutilation or eating disorders or things like that, because they perceive the psychological neglect is because there's something wrong with them. So therefore they have a low self-image and can behave in self-mutilative ways. And then if this person reaches into their 20s and 30s, that's often when I see them, when finally the bubble bursts and they can't cope with the anxiety and the scared feelings, and as I said, the bubble bursts, and they end up coming into seeing me. Or they can go the other way and get involved in some form of alcohol or drug use, which is self-medicates the anxiety away. If the emotional neglect is more than that, then the child goes from being angry about it to being, can I cope, to considering giving up. In this case, the perceived emotional neglect is quite severe, and the person enters what's called a despair type of reaction to the attachment with mother and father. And the children in this phase will can do things like they will tend to have a poor emotional development. They will be apathetic. They can display rocking type behaviour, maybe even some head banging, and have sort of a weak cry, and they can sleep excessively because they're not angry and they're not scared, but the perceived neglect is that strong that they are thinking of giving up. In adulthood, this person will report things like there's a sense of a vacuum in them, a nothingness, a hopelessness, like there's a part missing. Because when there is a healthy attachment, the child then gets a sense of substance and a feeling of who they are via the attachment with mother. If that's lacking significantly, then of course they don't have that. In severe cases, of course, it's worse than this, and when there is pretty well complete physical and emotional abandonment, and the child goes beyond the despair into what's called marasmus, where there is a failure, what's used to be called a failure to thrive, and the child doesn't thrive and usually is quite physically weak and develops some illness and probably will end up dying. Thank you.